and then put the rest of the stuff afterward, because a hell of a lot of stuff in this track you'll see at the end. I can't remember how many channels of tracks, I think it was about 60 or something ridiculous, you know, because we like to put lots of atmospheres, little trippy effects going on, so there was a lot in there. So for this specific track, the leads are important. These have to stand out, and you'll see what I mean with all this other stuff going on around it in the background. These leads have to drive the track. It's the things that you want to hear if you're in the car, the radio, especially in the club. You don't want it cluttered. You hear so many tracks, we've got these bits and pieces going on, and it covers the main part of the track, and people can't figure out, so, oh, how come I can't get my lead to cut across? And they turn it up. I mean, that's the biggest mistake ever. They turn things up or over-engineer things just to try and make a lead stand out. But the way I work, the way my brain works is work on the lead, get everything else to sit around it. I think you can't go wrong doing it that way. Okay, so we're a few stages on now. I think a lot of people are the same as me. Now, I think when I read articles or I read interviews on other producers, it's quite refreshing to hear that the same things happen to them as, you know, happen to yourself. Because when you work alone, you've got no one else to ask. You've got no one else to say, oh, do you go through this? Do you go for these problems? You know, we all, as artists, go through mind blocks. I have terrible days sometimes. I come in here, I was playing loops in the watching them on the screen. Nothing comes out. I have terrible days. It could last for 2 days. I'm trying to do something. I can't get any ideas, no musical inspiration. I just have to close it, sit down, mope in front of the TV and be sad about it and want to give up music up. But this went on for about a year, this whole project, and we kind of felt this pressure because the original was such a classic track. It like frightened us in a little way, you know, and usually I can pretty much make a track without thinking about it, you know, so used to it now, years of doing it, but I had this added pressure with this track, so got to get it right. So it kind of ended up going on the back shelf while other projects had to be done, you know, on deadlines. So through this process, I actually did one of the most frightening things ever, and I know it is for a lot of people, is changing the computer in mid-project. But it came to a point where I had to change the Mac, some of the latest plugins that I was getting are more processor hungry. The more you learn about engineering, the more tools that you use. So, you know, your computer's getting loaded at the end of each project, you know, because the more you learn, the more detailed you get with processing. And I was finding I kept having to bounce things, so I was putting it off, and I had to get a new computer. So you're going to see the change again. This is kind of like the last days of the old Apple Mac G5 that I had when I'm now on the Mac Pro. But here you'll see how the tracks progressed. I've just found a channel here of the main lead, and you'll see down here it's just whacked with processing, and I think it does actually change again. We'll see it again later on. As I had more power, more tools, I was able to do more of the sound. But you'll hear here if I mute it. So we've got here. Got a nice kind of phase effect on it now, which I've kind of felt it brought up today. And there's also the phase gave it a bit of width. You know, when I felt it was sitting in the track, it just sounded in the middle and too thin. So now I want it nice and wide, taking up a lot of space, making it sound powerful. So here we're starting off with. I love the UAD pack. It's fantastic. It made me sell all my external compressors. It's so good. So I've started off with a compressor just to keep control of the volumes and keep the power of the synth. This is Ricky's EQ, which is calmed down. It's quite an aggressive EQ. Ricky, he's going to kill me for saying this, but he does get carried away. He's kind of like the old school way of producer, where he just does these crazy EQ band widths, and you can see it. There's far too much on the top end there, and I just wanted to show you this as an example because you'll see later on how I've really detailed the engineering. But he's put a lot of bottom end on here. It shouldn't be there because, you know, you want the bottom end for the bass, the kick, the bass. And Ricky's bad habit, he wants every track in solo to sound good and fat and big with bass. And he kind of forgets that all these big fat bass things, when you play them all together, you can't hear them. So, Ricky, I know you're watching this. That's an example of a bad EQ, but you'll see how I've tidied it up. This is just to show you that things can be done the wrong way, and I want to show you how I resolve it later on, how I make it sound nice when there's going to be no bottom end, and how I make things fit together. So this was just to get it all sitting in here. Oh, you can see actually I've compensated for the bottom end with the waves EQ. I've kind of cut it away, but still, with the original EQ setting, it's pushed so high in the wrong frequencies, especially where the hats are sitting. You get a nasty kind of brittleness to it, which again I'll resolve later on. I'm fighting there with a limiter, more EQ, and a phaser. More EQ again, cutting that bottom end away. And it was like a battle really, because the original sounded nice even with the EQ. And the danger is your ears get used to that original sound, so when you change it, it doesn't sound like how you wanted it to. So I'm kind of showing as I go along the bad and how things get resolved. You also see on the track here I'm starting to organise things, all these lovely pretty colours. But for me, visually, I like to group things together. You've got the kick, the bass, which I like to keep together, so I can understand, I want these two things sitting together. Then I put the progressive section together. Then I've got all the leads coming up, and these are all the effects. We start doing all these effects, the details, the atmosphere. So now I'm getting a picture in my head how the track's going to come together, and I can look forward to start getting really into the engineering. So okay, this is what I know is the full bulk of the track. I've got to make all these sounds sit together. So again, this is kind of like the end of the notepad section. You can hear if I just unsolo this, tracks coming together. Got the beats, the progression, the bass line going in here. I know where the key changes are going in the bass. Hear the melodies working with the key changes. Then we go into the middle 8 section there. There's the trumpet. So no, this is going to work in this section. And then back into the melody again now. So now I'm kind of got the whole song mapped out with some little bit of processing as I go along, and you can see there that the arrangement of the track is pretty much there, and that's how I'd work. That's the notepad, gone to the arrangements, gone to the near enough to final sounds, and once I know everything's there, I can start organising everything and get stuck into the processing, which I'll go into now. Okay, so we've progressed up onto the new Apple Mac Pro. The transition seemed to go pretty well. It opens up the old versions of the old projects. Okay, actually it didn't go too bad. The only painstaking thing was updating all the plugins that I've got, and it's probably a really important note to put them somewhere safe, but keep a record of all your login details, what versions you're running. I've got a nice Excel sheet which tells me what version I'm running, last time I did the update, and it's a good job that I did that, because when I went through this process, it was really easy doing everything. Yes, it took a day to do it, having to, because I was on a pre-Intel machine before, so obviously you've got to do all the software updates for them to work onto the Intel machine. But having this system in an Excel doc, yes, it's really geeky, but it was a godsend, and it would have taken me hours and hours and hours of painstaking work to try and figure it all out. So instantly I could go log in, look at the update section of that particular plugin, see what version is the latest version. I could quickly cross-reference on my Excel sheet, see yes, I'm a few behind, so I needed to update it. So I went through that process, and this made everything work pretty good. There were some plugins which are still not working on Intel for some reason. They're a little bit slow. Perhaps they've just forgotten about Mac machines and they just want to concentrate on PCs. I don't know. So there was a few missing, which you have to compensate and kind of find another plugin. And sometimes the case, when you listen again in fresh ears, you want to change your sound anyway, and sort of going through another plugin, you kind of find something better anyway. So where I've got to the track now, you'll see here still nicely labelled with all the colours, so I can see what's going on. I've got the rough arrangement before. You can see here I've got all the atmospheres. They're muted out at the moment because they're not so important at this stage. I've got the melodies. I've started laying some extra layers. I mean, there's no reason why I can add layers. I add many layers. You see here the main riff. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers to make the main riff. But they all work together. Make sure they all go together, that they're not phasing, you haven't got frequency clashes. That's the important thing. And I have made space for the layers. There might be some wide ones, and I've got some sitting in the middle as well. So the rest of the track is quite